Hey everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do my monthly wrap up for May 2020. However, before I get on to talking about the books, I'd just like to announce that I have now created and made public a Patreon account for this channel, my BookTube channel. Now, Patreon is a site that creators on not just YouTube but many other social online medias and such use to essentially sort of have their viewers, fans, whatever you want to term you want to use, essentially can donate and support them financially doing their work, whatever that happens to be online. Now, I've only thought of doing this recently because frankly I thought I've been doing BookTube for 6.5 years now. I've never monetized a video and indeed never will, because monetizing a video means that I am allowing adverts to be placed near my videos. I do not like adverts, so I can't do this because it makes me a large hypocrite. So instead I thought a Patreon is a way to monetize my videos as such, essentially without me being hypocritical about it. So if you would like to support me in that way, which is totally not, obviously, you know, I will never suggest this again, by the way, at least ever on my channel. I'll just link it in the description box below, and I might mention it like in one video a year. That'll be it forever. So if you want to support me, you can, but there's never any need to, because I'm never going to push it other than one video a year. Anyway, that's it. So onto the books, which is the main thing I talk about in every video. So the first book I read was Ancestral Night, written by Elizabeth Bear. This is the first book in what will be a series, maybe a trilogy. Nobody entirely knows yet. The series will be called White Space. This is a space opera, and I really enjoyed this book overall. As far as the plot goes, this is based on this very small crew of a spaceship. The main captain of the ship is called Amy. She and her ship is essentially a salvage ship. They try to salvage technology from wherever they can in space. They will do rescue missions occasionally as well, if it can, you know, provide them with a bit of money to keep going in their ship and with food and such. One day they uncover a piece of old technology. I'm not going to say what, and they realise it could be very valuable. However, because this piece of technology and where they are is out of any normal trade routes and such, some pirates turn up. They want to get hold of this technology because it will be worth a fortune for them, and things ensue from that point onwards. And this technology that they might be able to salvage from this piece of derelict might be very valuable if they can actually survive and do something with it. And it spirals outwards, and this will obviously be a big epic space opera eventually. Well, it already is, but this will be on a far larger scale with more books, and I'm very interested to see where this goes because the characters are really interesting, the plot is fantastic, it's got really interesting and curious ideas, does a few little things that space operas, yes, sometimes often do, but not always. Some of them are a little bit differently executed, which I really appreciate, and overall I would really recommend this. And a friend of mine, Rachel, she did a review of this book about a year and a half ago, I believe it was, so I will link that review in the description box below. The next book that I read was the third book in the Legend of the Galactic Heroes series, of which there are 10 in total. This one is Inversions. This essentially reads to me as an alternative history fantasy, but it's science fiction in space with spaceships. You have this big galactic empire. Years ago you had a group split off from it to try and gain independence, essentially a republic. And now you have this other big group which is almost as big as the empire. The empire wants to get the republic back into it, wants to control it again because they don't like the fact that they essentially sort of escaped and managed to control, and they're not controlling it anymore. And it causes a lot of battles, and each of the two massive groups has their own sort of legendary general type figure who's like a military genius, and it's always this sort of long game by these two men and the empires, and the captains and all this other things. It's fantastic. I am really enjoying this series immensely. I mean, I've got more books to read. I mean, there are 10 in total, so there'll be 7 more in the next 3 or 4 months. And I would really recommend these if you want something different. And they made an anime or manga series of this some years ago as well, which I will watch once I've read these books, which I would recommend. The next 2 books that I read are the second and third books in the Embers of War trilogy by Gareth L. Powell. These are Slate of Knives, Book 2, Light of Impossible Stars, Book 3. Now, this is a trilogy that I'm going to be doing a review of in the next few weeks. So, suffice to say, and also this is books 2 and 3, so it's a bit tricky for me to talk about, but this is a science fiction trilogy. It's well written, it's got good characters. The overall plot line, I'm not going to talk about too much, but it involves obviously big galactic stakes with multiple characters in different locations doing various things. Each book follows the same couple of characters, and obviously each book introduces a few new characters into the mix to push certain plotline elements along, as you would expect, and as this type of book generally involves. And I would really recommend these 2 books, and indeed obviously the trilogy as a whole, because it's just fun, well paced, and just enjoyable. And also, I don't want to say too much about the plotline of these 2 books because I am probably going to get elements of the Elizabeth Bear book mixed up with these, because I read these very close together and they are quite similar in theme. So I'll probably get elements of that book mixed in with these 2. It's quite hard to talk about, actually. The next book that I read was Hard to Be a God by Boris and Arkady Strugatsky. Now, this is one of the obviously SF Masterworks, the Yellow Spines that I have many of. The brothers of Arkady and Boris were well known for science fiction books as of their time, and they still are today. There were quite a few books, many of them had really interesting and curious ideas. I've only read a few of them at this point. I will continue to read them because this I actually really enjoyed. The idea of this is about one guy called Anton. He is an undercover operative from a advanced society of Earth. He goes to this essentially sort of backwaters planet, which is very not technology minded. They essentially haven't progressed much beyond the sort of medieval Middle Ages, roughly. And he goes there and investigates his society, and the whole book is a case of, can you observe a society like this without actually interfering in the society and without actually directly influencing it and changing it in fairly significant and perverse ways? I mean, frankly, Star Trek obviously always had this with their directives about not interfering in other cultures that are not yet space worthy. That kind of ideas in a different way, with interesting writing, curious characters, and I really liked it. It's not always the easiest book to read, despite the short length. To take actually some time to read, but it had just such a curiosity of writing and such an interesting way of putting things that I really did enjoy overall, and I would greatly recommend this. Next up, I read Inversions, written by Iain M. Banks. This is the 6th book in the Culture universe, of which there are 10 in total. Although there are 10 books and this may be the 6th as such, none of the books are in any way linked. They just happen to be in the same general universe and with the same sort of ideas for background and such. However, this one doesn't at first glance appear to be following any of the rules of the Culture. Considering the Culture is a science fiction universe, this book appears to be fantasy. The Culture and the science fiction element, you do eventually at the end of the book realise where it fits in, and it's a very clever way. I'm not going to spoil it by saying how, but this does fit into the Culture universe, and this does connect to that science fiction universe, and indeed it is science fiction. However, for most of the book it is essentially fantasy, which is a curious idea. Banks does this extremely well. The idea of it is in this one palace, the king's new physician is a female woman who is new to the kingdom from another distant land. She is having problems with Rome because people don't want her to be the king's physician because she's actually really good. And then in another palace in a neighbouring kingdom, there's the sort of protector of the kingdom. The chief's bodyguard is having issues as well with enemies and such who do not like him to be the bodyguard for the protector. Basically, they're both doing their jobs too well for various people to manipulate them, and this is causing problems because they want to be able to manipulate the leaders, and these two people are stopping them. It's really well written, got interesting ideas. The way it links to the culture is frankly interesting, and I would greatly recommend this book. If you want to read a culture book that's different, because this reads like fantasy, frankly, from the whole book, then I would recommend it. It's interesting, and I will do a separate review of this in the upcoming future as well. And finally, the last thing that I read was 3 books, and actually a trilogy, and that is Legends of the Riftwar trilogy, written by Raymond E. Feist, and each book were co-written by a different author. These are Honoured Enemy, co-written with William Forstchen, Murder in LaMut, co-written by Joel Rosenberg, and finally Jimmy the Hand, co-written by Steve Stirling. Now, these 3 books are, at this point, these are more than halfway through the overall Riftwar Cycle universe. There are 30 books in total. These are now more than halfway, which I'm very happy with. I've reached that point. These do not connect directly with the overall arcing storyline that continues throughout the 30 books. Some of the trilogies and various sets of books don't. These are unrelated in all for intents and purposes. These are essentially just sort of little sub-stories, as you can tell. Legends of the Riftwar. These are stories based off events and characters triggered by the original trilogy, where all the books stem from. And this is just him and these other 3 authors essentially just expanding upon and just having fun with various ideas and characters that you already are vaguely aware of, very lightly, and you never really got to see as much in some cases. And they're well written, they're fun. I'd only recommend them if you've got into the Riftwar books already, because these will make limited sense, frankly, without knowing Riftwar as a whole, because these are very focused and very linked to the Riftwar sort of mythology and sort of lore. These rely on knowledge of the previous books. You can't really read them out. I mean, maybe you could, but you'd be missing a lot of context, and they would not be as enjoyable, frankly. They are fantasy. I'm not going to talk about the 3 plot lines because they're all completely different from each other. They're totally unrelated, actually. But if you like the Riftwar, you will want to read them. And if you don't like the Riftwar, haven't read them yet, then I'll say you just ignore them for the time being until you either tried out the Riftwar books or decided that you don't like them, one way or the other. So that said, that's it for this video and for all of the books I've read. If you've read any of these or you would like to, then please leave a comment and we can have a talk about them. If you have any suggestions on books you think I might enjoy based on any of these, then again leave a comment, because I'm always interested and looking for new authors and new books and such, a new series. My Patreon link for the first ever time will be linked in the description box below, as well as links to Rachel and anything else relevant to what I've talked about in this video. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.